Okay.
Shall I play again or we'll start directly?
We will start now because it is time to start our satsang.
Yes.
So we will not play the song now. So, Sachin, shall we begin?
हेमा जी, ये प्रोग्राम YouTube पे लाइव नहीं जा पाएगा, ये पर एक क्लाउड में रिकॉर्ड करके मैं बाद में अपलोड कर दूंगा.
Sir, make me a co-host, sir, because I'm not able to share.
Sure. I'm making you as a host.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, Sachin, so you're saying that we are not able to go on Ramraj TV today?
Yes, not live. I will upload after that.
Uh-huh. So should we cancel today, you think? Because most people are not able to join, number one. And number two, we are not able to connect to Ramraj TV. And so we only have 5 or 6 people. Should we postpone to next week?
Yes, it's okay, Hema ji.
I'm giving admit, ma'am. Hema ji, I'm giving admit because I was made co-host now.
Huh.
I'm trying to give admits, whoever is on this.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Jai Gurudev Hema ji. Jai Gurudev Mata ji.
Jai
Gurudev Ma.
Jai
Gurudev
I had
Mata.
some problem, technical problem I had, Hema ji.
Yes. Yeah. We all have been having the technical problems, but now Sachin set it right, so we can begin. We are late by 7-8 minutes, but we will begin now. So today is going to be an interesting day. Our Vedic Pandits are not able to join today because 2 of them are getting married. One of them got married yesterday. The other one is getting married on 5th of June.
Marriage, contagious marriage.
So the third one, he has a throat issue. He did a havan and he has a sore throat. So they are not able to join. So I will be reciting today the Sanskrit shlokas. And so now we will begin now. Okay. Jai Gurudev to all. Welcome to our weekly Gita Satsang. I will begin with Sahana Bhavatu. Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
So I will do mala for the last 2 shlokas, and then I will recap, and then we will continue with the study of Bhagwat Geeta shlokas. So Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu Vishayanindriyaischaran Atmavashyair vidheyatma Prasadamadigaccati. So that was the last 2 verses of last session, and we have studied shlokas 60 to 64. And in the last session, we have learned that the nature of the senses is such that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man who tries to control them. But it is the function of the senses to take the mind to the sense objects because they want to make their yajamani, their boss, happy because they feel happy with the sense objects. So when they say, oh, let's go to the movies or let's listen to the music and all that, then the mind goes in that direction. So from this, it seems like the minds are dragging the mind and that it may be difficult to control the senses. But there is a simple technique that Maharishi gave us with transcendental meditation. We can bring the senses under control easily and automatically. And then this we have seen that when we take the mantra and we are going inward, the mind automatically goes towards fields of greater happiness. So the senses go along with that and they are going more inward. Then what happens with this? The individual, the person becomes master of the senses instead of being the slave of the senses. And this happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight, but over a period of time, then we gain control over the senses. And like the example I gave, the way it is done is when you want to control the monkey, you give the monkey some bananas, put the bananas in front of your house, and they come running instead of chasing the monkey. So that way, the senses easily come under the control of the person practicing TM. So now, when this happens and when the intellect gets established in the self, then he's devoted to God, even when he is engaged in action. It's not that one tries to think of God all the time when we are doing other things. It's just a beautiful feeling of awareness, beautiful awareness that you are with God and that God is with you. And this feeling comes by itself. And as one grows in love and devotion, one experiences great waves of bliss in the ocean of cosmic consciousness. We have also discussed what happens when the senses are not under control and they are not turned inwards towards the divine. Then what happens? Then senses are taking you here and there and they have desires. And when the desires are not fulfilled, then one feels angry. And this anger ruins the intellect and man perishes. So as opposed to this situation, what happens when the senses are controlled? The reward is that we get God's grace. Grace means God becomes pleased with us. That is called prasadam in Sanskrita, and it's called grace in English. It is fullness. It is wholeness. And this is the great benefit of asthita prajna. So now I will say a few words in Hindi. पिछले सत्संग में इंद्रियों की प्रकृति का चर्चा किया गया था. उनका काम है बाहरी सुखों से मन को आनंद ले आना. इंद्रियां कर्तव्यबद्ध है. वे बलपूर्वक मन को बहिर्मुखी ले जाते हैं क्योंकि वे अपने यजमानी को संतुष्ट करना चाहते हैं। आंखें बोलते सिनेमा जाओ, कान बोलते अच्छी संगीत सुनो। ऐसा कहने से ऐसा प्रतीत होता है कि इंद्रियों को वश में करना कठिन है, परंतु श्री कृष्ण भगवान ने हमें बताया है कि इंद्रियों को वश में करना संभव है, और वो है भावाती ध्यान से इंद्रियों को नियंत्रण में ले आ सकते हैं। और इससे ये अभ्यास करने से स्थित प्रज्ञ पुरुष आत्मा से युक्त हो जाते हैं और इंद्रियां उनके वश में आ जाते हैं। तो तब कर्म करते हुए भी ईश्वर के प्रति समर्पित रहता है। इसको कहते हैं भगवान का है, तो इसको कहते हैं प्रसाद बोलते हैं। और आगे चलते हुए हम ये भी देखा है कि यदि किसी व्यक्ति की स्थिति नहीं होती है तो वो लोगों का क्या हाल होगा। ऐसे लोगों में जब इच्छा या कामना मन में विकसित होती है और इच्छाएं पूरी नहीं होती है तो व्यक्ति क्रोधित होता है। क्रोध मन को उत्तेजित करता है और बुद्धि काम करना बंद कर देती है और उससे मनुष्य का नाश हो जाता है। और इंद्रियों का नियंत्रण करने से क्या फल मिलता है, अभी हमने कहे थे कि ऐसे लोगों को भगवान का अनुग्रह मिलता है, भगवान उनसे प्रसन्न होते हैं, जिसे प्रसाद कहते हैं। अच्छा, तो अभी now we will begin discussion of shlokas 65. I will read English shloka and then we will continue with I will read Sanskrit shloka and we'll continue with English translation. Okay. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajaayate prasannachetasoo hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. I'll read one more time. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasannachetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate.
Jai Gurudev. In grace is born an end to all his sorrows. Indeed, the intellect of the man of exalted consciousness soon becomes firmly established. The experience of pure bliss consciousness puts an end to all suffering, filling the heart with happiness. It brings perfect tranquility to the mind. The principle is that if freedom from suffering, lasting peace, health, and fulfillment are desired, it is necessary to gain bliss consciousness. Jai Gurudev.
Okay, now I will recite verse 66. Nasti buddhirayuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutah sukham. I will read again. Nasti buddhirayuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana न चाभावयत शान्तिः अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
Jagudev, he who is not established has no intellect, nor has he any steady thought. The man without steady thought has no peace. For one without peace, how can there be happiness? The glory of the established intellect is brought out here. When the mind is established in the self, then it is in tune with cosmic intelligence, and then only has it what Sri Krishna Bhagavan calls intellect, the faculty of discrimination. Unless one is in tune with cosmic intelligence, there is no wisdom, no steadiness, no peace, no happiness in the real sense. The verse may also be interpreted as showing the stages through which a worldly mind passes on the way to bliss consciousness. Confused in the world as the mind is, it has to become peaceful in order to have a steady thought, which then converges into a state of one-pointedness called intellect, which then becomes established in being. When during meditation, the mind enters the experience of the subtle levels of thought, it becomes more collected, more steady with every step, and therefore feels itself entering a field of increasing charm. This process ends in the absolute happiness of the transcendent. If the mind is more steady, it is in a better position to experience greater happiness. As on a calmer surface of water, the sun reflects more clearly, so a calmer mind receives a clearer reflection of the omnipresent bliss of the absolute being. As the mind fathoms finer fields of thinking during meditation, the metabolism is simultaneously reduced. This establishes the nervous system in degrees of ever-increasing peace. Eventually, when the entire nervous system comes to a completely peaceful state, it reflects being, and this gives rise to bliss consciousness. The state of transcendental consciousness cannot be gained unless the nervous system is completely peaceful. This is the truth revealed by the words, "For one without peace, how can there be happiness?" The bliss is already there. It is only to calm down the wandering of the mind. A question arises here. If the wandering of the minds are due to the search of happiness, would it not be said, unless there is happiness, how can there be peace? But no, the expression unless there is happiness is completely wrong. It could not have been framed by Sri Krishna Bhagavan, because it is not true. For bliss is omnipresent and eternal, while happiness is the expression of the reflection of the omnipresent bliss on the mind. Absolute bliss being always there, the experience of happiness thus depends upon the degree of steadiness of the mind. If the mind is more collected, more peaceful, it experiences more happiness. During meditation, the mind entering the subtle phases of a thought becomes more collected and more peaceful. That is why it proceeds that way automatically. This truth is expressed by the Upanishads when they declare that happiness varies in different states of creation at different levels of evolution. As the mind evolves to the higher levels of consciousness during meditation, it experiences increasing degrees of happiness until it comes to absolute bliss in the most highly evolved state of pure transcendental consciousness. Jai Gurudev.
Jai.
Now Mataji will make comments. Mataji, please go ahead.
So this is for the verses 65 and 66. I will just quickly read again. In grace is born an end to all his sorrows. Indeed, the intellect of the man of exalted consciousness soon becomes firmly established. He who is not established has no intellect, nor has he any steady thought. The man without steady thought has no peace. For one without peace, how can there be happiness? So here there are very important words here. One is the grace. Hemaji has said something about it. And then there is the intellect, established intellect. We are not talking about, ordinary intellect. We're talking about established intellect in the cosmic intelligence. And then we're talking about everything being studied and gaining the deeper peace, because without peace, there will not be happiness. Now, with the grace, let me just, elaborate it a little bit. Even, if you take the Yoga Sutras, they say, Ishvara Pranidhanam. That means, you have to have the grace of the Ishvara. You have to be one with the Ishvara. You have to be able to surrender to the Ishvara. And this is repeatedly told by Maharishi in, as you go into the other chapters. And what happens is, the first grace is always, that we have found a guru in this lifetime. That is our biggest grace. And the second is, we have gotten a technique, where we can transcend. That is the second grace. And the third grace is, having the pure experience of the self. Now, the self is defined as the transcendental consciousness. Then it is also said to be Turiya, and it is also said to be Nirvikalpa. So in this Nirvikalpa, if one has to understand, that means it is Nirvikalpa. That means it has, the self has to stand by itself. There is no mind or there is no intellect. In one of, I have never received a transcript of this, but it was when Maharishi was speaking in the year that he attained the Brahmalin, Maharishi was clearly saying that, that you transcend the mind, and you transcend the mind, and, and you enter into a space where there is no mind and there is no intellect. So that is where, from there, the consciousness has to take it to the consciousness deeper. And the consciousness has to reveal itself by itself to itself. This is the pure Nirvikalpa, when, there is infinite, all-pervading self. And this, Maharishi has very clearly said, this is where you need the grace to be able to go through that one stretch of that consciousness, moving in the consciousness with no other support, no support of the mind, thought, mantras, or anything like that. It has to go in the consciousness alone. And that is where, he even again, when he brings the God consciousness, he again reiterates this, where there has the silence to be very deep. The silence has to be very deep at that point. And there should be, the nervous system has to be extremely calm at that point, where the self reveals the self to itself, by itself. And this is the ultimate self-realization. So this is the biggest grace that, all the authors pray for this, to have that grace, to have the ultimate self-realization, which is actually the experience of the Paramatma. So the experience self-realization begins with the Paramatma, knowing the Paramatma, and then when it is established, then, it becomes again and again that experience comes, then it is established as the cosmic consciousness. And in this cosmic consciousness, the mind is completely different. The mind becomes cosmic, And the intelligence also becomes cosmic and established in the cosmic intelligence. So when one is talking about study intellect, it is in this state where the mind and the intellect are very steady in that cosmic intelligence. And then they are, here, when that steadiness comes, because the individual mind is the mind which is all the time wavering. It is all the time going this way or that way. The bliss is always there. When is the situation where there is no bliss? And even the bliss is talked about, the bliss in the relative and the bliss in the absolute. As you go into the deeper layers of the relative, the subtler layers, you feel the bliss, but it is still in the bliss in the relative. And then there is the bliss of the absolute, which is unshakable bliss. And so these are clearly, if they are understood, then when one experiences this, then nobody has to be able to tell you, yes, you have had the self-realization, now you have the cosmic consciousness, now you have the God consciousness. Nobody has to tell you that, because you know it in a very unshakable way. And you know that your intellect is established in the cosmic, and and it will be content in that cosmic intelligence. It is not craving for something on the outside. It is not really craving for those senses which are running on the outside, because the mind is also has become more cosmic now. So naturally, in this steadiness, in this level of silence, in this, there is more happiness, more contentment, and in the, so this established intellect then becomes unwavering. It knows its priorities. It knows what is conducive for enlightenment. It knows what is conducive for happiness. It knows what is conducive for peace. And it knows how to discriminate. So let me just, go over this one thing here. I don't think there is anything more to be said here. If the mind is more collected, more peaceful, then it experiences more happiness. And this is why Bhagavan says, without peace, how can there be happiness? Without peace, how can there be happiness? So this silence, this peace, which is established at that level of the cosmic thing, becomes unshakable. And then the happiness, the happiness of this bliss, absolute bliss, always remains there, and you know it. Even though on the surface level, there is something that is troubling, there is some pain, there is some suffering is there, this is not overshadowed. And even if it gets overshadowed, it is very, very temporary, just like, removing the dust or a cloud moving away, covering the sun for a few seconds and the cloud moving away. It cannot cover it for a long time because it is already there. You know it is there. You know it because experientially, not intelligently, you know it. So I think I've touched these two subjects here. One is the grace, absolute grace that is needed. And the second is the established intellect. And the third is the deeper silence of the nervous system and the deeper peace. And this establishes the happiness. So thank you very much, Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Thank
Mataji,
you. Yeah.
Mataji, I have a question, and also then after the question, the scientific research also.
Yeah, please. Whoever wants to.
So the what I understand now is that you told us very clearly about what Maharishi speaks about Sahita of Rishi, Devata and Chan.
Yes, yeah.
The knower, knowing, and the known. And we also called it the self-interacting dynamics.
Yes.
And when we are established in the self, the second, we are moving through that pathless path inside us, which gives us the deep silence and where we calm down the nervous system. And when the nervous system is calmed down and everything works, the outcome of this is very clearly mentioned in the scientific research that when the inner self is calm, then what happens? There is a holistic improvement in yourself. And with that, you have greater intelligence. You'll have more of mental clarity.
Yes.
You are awake to all sorts of situations. There's a mental alertness. Then there is more of flexibility. And when all these things take place, then what happens? You have a great intellectual performance and the ability to deal with all the aspects and fields of life, the abstract and the complex.
Yes, it is very beautiful because the whole of the Gita, the whole of the teaching is only about infinite possibilities. Only about the infinite possibilities. And so this, whether it is the silence, whether it is the peace, whether it is the happiness, it is all on that infinite level. So you cannot say, this is it, this is the end of it. No, because the level of the silence keeps changing, as you're moving from the individual level to the cosmic God and unity consciousness and the Brahman. It keeps changing. Everything changes. So this is actually when the established intellect comes, it is like day and night.
Right, Mataji.
Like day and night, because the individual mind and the individual intellect are not there. They might come, they might, somewhere, they might be arising, but already the shift has happened.
Right.
Shift has happened. Like, the day has broken, the night has broken, the day has come. Right? Even if a cloud comes in front of the sun is still shining. It can't last too long, na?
Right. Absolutely. And then continued in the verse 66, you have been mentioning about peace and happiness.
Yes.
Here also there is a beautiful scientific research because when you have the increased intelligence, obviously your nervous system has now calmed down. There has been tranquility in you. And the outcome definitely will be the inner peace. And when there will be inner peace, there's bound to be happiness.
Yes. Because you see, when this cosmic intelligence increases, naturally, the nervous system is more silent. Naturally, the nervous system is more silent. And naturally, the nervous system becomes more flexible. Because, it understands that there is no need for rigidity here. Everything understands. The mind, intellect, everything, the physiology are in sync. And they begin to understand there is no need. There is enormous flexibility that comes. That all that is there is ever changing. And there is this, or the bliss is already there. I know the bliss now. And it can't be overshadowed for long. Only thing is, that moment maybe I have to bear with it and it will pass. So when this comes in an unshakable way, then this is the established intellect. This is the established intellect.
Very, very correct. And the last line was, Maharishi always said that the individual is the unit of peace.
Yes.
So हर एक व्यक्ति अगर अपने आप में खुद शांति स्थापित करता है, तो हर एक व्यक्ति फिर उसको peace की ओर ले जाएगा. Peace is nothing that we are seeking from outside and we will preach and it will come. Peace, Maharishi said, is the individual's own quality. And when all the individual move and go in that direction, then we will be able to create the world peace.
Because these are all inner qualities only. The bliss is inner, the peace is inner, the silence is inner, the lastingness is inner, the contentment and satisfaction is inner only. There is nothing on the outside.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Very beautiful. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. So, Anitaji, did you cover your scientific research points? I would like to say something in Hindi. for
Yeah.
speaking friends. यहाँ जीते हुए मन का लाभ कहा गया है ये दोनों श्लोकों में. मन जीते जग जीत, गुरु नानक जी ने बोले थे और महर्षि जी ने दोहराया है. जब मन जीते जग जीत सकते हैं, क्योंकि मन और इंद्रियों की जीत नहीं हुई तो पुरुष में निश्चलात्मक बुद्धि नहीं होती है और उस अयुक्त मनुष्य के अंतःकरण में अशांति होती है. जो आत्मा में स्थित नहीं है उसका कोई विचार स्थिर नहीं होते हैं. स्थिर विचार के बिना मनुष्य को शांति नहीं मिलती है, क्योंकि मन स्थिर नहीं है तो इंद्रियां इधर उधर भाग रहे हैं तो शांति नहीं हो सकती है. तो जिसके पास शांति नहीं है वह सुख कैसे पा सकता है. ये है ये दोनों का श्लोकों का अर्थ. ओके, कोई हिंदी में कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं क्या? No.
I think now I will take leave, Hema. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. Jai Gurudev to all of you.
Jai Gurudev.
Because
Okay.
I have my new Pandit case. I
Okay.
take care of him, give him food and all.
Okay.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. So now we will move on to verse 67. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu vidhiyate harati prajnam vayurnavamivambhasi. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavamivambhasi.
Jai Gurudev. When a man's mind is governed by any of the wandering senses, his intellect is carried away by it as a ship by the wind on water. The mind by nature thirsts for greater happiness. Let us suppose it is enjoying experience through a particular sense. In its eagerness to enjoy the utmost which that sense can provide, it becomes absorbed in the process of enjoying, and in this one-sided absorption loses the power of discrimination, which is the main faculty of the intellect. This is what Sri Krishna Bhagavan, when he says, the senses rob a man of intellect. The mind is prepared to accept anything that can tempt it with the promise of happiness. Any sensory object which promises happiness is capable of taking possession of the mind. This is not to the discredit of the mind, for its nature is to enjoy. If the senses draw the mind to the joys of their objects, this similarly is no discredit to the senses. They are the machinery through which the mind enjoys, and like a ready servant are waiting to serve the mind. As a ship is carried away by the wind, so is the mind completely carried away by the senses in the outward direction of the gross creation, the direction of the object of the senses. It loses the power of concentration, for it travels as if in a diverging beam, a course naturally opposed to the concentrated state of intellect. The following verse advises control over the senses for safety's sake. Jai Gurudev.
Okay, so here, how the senses steal the intellect is explained. The mind, by nature, wants greater happiness. We all know that. Let us say you are studying for your math or physics exam, and it's so boring, and your mind automatically goes to your, favorite song, because your favorite song gives you more happiness, and you're enjoying that song and you're absorbed in it. Then the intellect loses its power of discrimination. What is it supposed to do? It is supposed to tell you, no, you have to study for your physics test. You should be focusing on your studies and not listen to the music. But because the mind is absorbed in the music, you lost your intellect. And here it is said that the senses steal a man's intellect, because the intellect is gone. It's gone. Just like the ship is carried away by the wind, the senses carry away the intellect from its discriminating power, so the intellect is lost. And so that is how the senses, the powerful senses, can take the intellect away. So now I'll say, in Hindi, जब मनुष्य का बुद्धि स्थिर नहीं है, इंद्रियां इस अयुक्त पुरुष की बुद्धि को हर लेती है. जैसे कि आप फिजिक्स टेस्ट के लिए पढ़ रहे हैं, उसमें आपको कुछ आनंद नहीं मिल रहा है और आपका फेवरेट गाना सुनाई देता है, तो आपका मन अपने आप वह मधुर गाना के तरफ खींचा जाता है और उसमें आनंद उठाता है. जैसे जल में चलने वाली नाव को वायु हर लेती है, इंद्रियां अपने बुद्धि को हर लेते हैं. Okay, so scientific research.
Yes. No, you do it, Hemaji, or you like me to do it?
No, I was looking for you, Anita ji. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, as you have very clearly explained, Hemaji, about the senses that steal intellect and how the moving mind toward the senses, which goes towards more charm. And when our intellect is not steady and it moves towards the temporary phases of our senses, which appeal us only for a time being, then the situation is different, because then the intellect does not have that discriminating power. But for the steady intellect, the scientific research says that there is the cognitive efficiency through the people who do the transcendental Maharishi transcendental meditation, and it has been proven that then there is improved comprehension, there is more orderliness of the brain functioning, there is more integration of the brain functioning, because then when you have reached that level of transcendence and where the brain functioning has improved, then definitely you have developed that steady intellect, and you have also developed control over the senses. So the senses no longer take you to the outward charm, because then you are moving towards the inward charm. Thank you, Jagudev.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? In Hindi or English? So looks like no question. So we will move on to the next shloka, that is 68. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrahitani sarvashah इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
Therefore, he whose senses are all withdrawn from their objects, O mighty armed, his intellect is established. This verse, which is almost a repetition of verse 58, presents the conclusion of the last 6 verses. It gives the quintessence essence of the entire scheme of fulfillment in life, which is to channel the mind into regions of experience more blissful than the ordinary gross fields of sensory life. Therefore, refers back to the words of verse 66, for one without peace, how can there be happiness? It indicates that if happiness is sought, peace has to be created. The nervous system has to be brought to a state of restful alertness. For this to happen, the activity of the senses must cease. That is why Shri Krishna Bhagavan says, whose senses are all withdrawn from their objects. The verse establishes that the senses lose their relationship to their objects when the intellect is resolute. When it is established in the self, the senses function on different levels. On the grosser level, they enable the mind to enjoy the external aspects of their objects. Functioning on the subtler level, they enable it to experience the more subtle aspects of objects, and the joys arising from the experience of the subtler states of objects are greater than those arising from the gross states. When during meditation, the mind begins to experience the subtler aspects of a thought, it experiences increasing charm, and thus is naturally attracted to the experience of subtlest aspect of the thought. The experience of this finest state of thought, which is on the subtlest level of creation, provides the mind with a great joy in the field of relativity. But even this joy is not permanent, is not of the absolute nature. Arjuna is being directed to bring his mind to a state beyond the greatest joy of relativity so that he can free himself from dependence upon the transitory relative joys of life and become established in the bliss of the absolute. To reach this eternal bliss, Shri Krishna Bhagavan asks him to leave completely the field of sensory perception, both gross and subtle. Thus he will come to establish intellect, intellect established in the transcendent. To live this principle in the daily life is simple, for one only knows how to allow the mind to come quite naturally out of the field of the senses and reach the state of established intellect. Thus, in this verse, the principle that has already been explained from the point of view of the mind is illustrated from that of relative sensory perception. The following verse distinguishes between the fields of life of the enlightened and the ignorant. Jai Guru.
Okay. So it seems like there is some repetition here. We are saying the same things over and over, but there is a good reason for that. And let's see what that good reason is. So this shloka seems like we are repeating what was said in shloka 58. And the shloka 58 says that the state of senses of Sthita Prajna is compared to the indrawn limbs of the tortoise.
Maji, video on कीजिएगा.
Ah. Okay. So the 58th verse says that the tortoise, when it draws its limbs inside, it looks like there are no limbs at all. So Sthita Prajna senses are compared to a tortoise with indrawn limbs. So what that means is that Sthita Prajna senses are turned inward and not outward. And here, one other point is brought out, because Sri Krishna Bhagavan said in verse 66, in which Kunda Mataji had explained, it said, without peace, there can be no happiness. It indicates that if one wants to be happy, one has to create peace. And for this to happen, the senses must calm down and rest. So, how does this happen? In the state of Sthita Prajna, in the state where the intellect is established in the self, senses automatically calm down and they are not active in their objects. So this is the reason why first peace needs to be created. Because say, in your mind, the sensor, all five senses are running here and there. There is a lot of activity going on. So if the mind is not settled, you don't have peace. And if you don't have peace, there cannot be happiness. But when the mind settles down in transcendental meditation, then the senses are calming down because they are not active. The senses, they are going inward and not outward. But this doesn't mean that you lose interest in listening to your favorite music or doing your favorite things. It only means that you're able to, focus and calm the mind down during meditation. And when you come out, you're, able to perform all your activities as usual. But then, because you have gained this inner peace, that inner peace and silence stays with you, and you are able to function more efficiently. So what that means is, with this increase in efficiency, what happens? You prepare for your physics test, you complete preparation quickly, and then you still have time. Then you go out to meet your friends, or to movie, or listen music, or to a party, do whatever. So you become very efficient because you're making best use of your time. There had been extensive scientific research showing that with regular practice of meditation, memory, learning ability, and academic performance improve tremendously. So that helps in efficient use of your time. You prepare for your test more quickly, so you have more free time. Another point is the senses function on different levels. On gross level, they enjoy the superficial, transient joys of the objects, going out and having fun, which is okay. But when the senses function at a subtler level, they enjoy more because there is greater happiness in subtler levels of creation. And we see this happen all the time in our meditation. When we begin, we may have a lot of thoughts and it may be a little bit unsettling, but as the mind settles down, we feel calmer and more peaceful because we are going inward and there is more happiness in subtler levels of thought. So I'll say a few words in English, in Hindi. So यहाँ ऐसा लगता है कि श्लोक 58 दोबारा कहा गया है. वहां स्थित प्रज्ञ की इंद्रियों की कछुए के अंगों से तुलना की गई थी. जब कछुआ सब ओर से अपने अंगों को समेट लेता है, तब बाहर से ऐसा प्रतीत होता है जैसे कि उसके कोई अंग नहीं है. इसका अर्थ है कि स्थित प्रज्ञा की इंद्रियां अंतर्मुखी है, बहिर्मुखी नहीं. जब इंद्रियां अंतर्मुख होते हैं तो मन शांत हो जाता है. मन शांत होने से आनंद मिलता है. इसलिए कृष्ण भगवान बोलते हैं, हे अर्जुन, जिस पुरुष की इंद्रियों के विषयों से शांत होते हैं और सब प्रकार निग्रह की हुई है, उसकी बुद्धि स्थिर है. उसे कहते हैं स्थित प्रज्ञा. Anita ji, do you want to read the scientific research? I just mentioned, happened to write here that with the established intellect, there is increased brain wave coherence. And I just mentioned increased academic performance and all that. So would you like to add anything? Anita ji, unmute, please.
Hemaji, this is exactly what it says. And you have said beautifully that how it increases the neurological efficiency, the brain functioning, and how well it leads us to academic performance. And there is so much of coherence in the brain functioning that our senses are all withdrawn. We go inside and we move towards greater happiness. This is exactly what is here. You already explained it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? हिंदी में पूछ सकते हैं या अंग्रेजी में? Okay. So we have some time for group meditation, and then I will recite second chapter. Okay. Let's all sit comfortably and do few minutes of group meditation. Never mind the time. I will say Jai Gurudev. Okay. Let's begin now. Sachin or Sunita, can you put a sign that we are meditating, or put Maharishi picture, please? Okay. Jai Gurudev. Take a minute or so and slowly open the eyes. Jai Gurudev. Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Dvitiyodhyayah. Sanjaya Uvacha. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam Ashrupurnakulekshanam Vishidantamidam vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. Anaryajushtamasvargyam akirtikaram-arjuna. Klaibyam masmagamah partha naitatvayupapadyate. Shudram hrudaya daurbalyam tyaktvottishta parantapa. Arjuna uvacha. Katham bhishmamaham sankhe dronam cha madhusudana. Ishubhik pratiyotsyami pujarhavarisudana. Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamapiha loke. Hatvarthakamamstu gurunihaiva bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan. Na chaitad vidmah kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadivano jayeyuhu. Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha Teva sthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha. Karpanya doshopahata svabhavaha. Prichhami tvam dharma sammudhachetaha. Yachreyasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme. Shishyasteham Shadhimam tvam prapannam. Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat yachokamuchoshanamindriyanam. Avapya bhuma vasapatnamruddham rajyam suranam api chadhipatyam. Sanjaya uvacha. Eva muktva hrishikesham gudakeshah parantapa. Nayotya iti govindam muktva tushnim babhuvaha. Tamuvacha hrishikeshah prahasanniva bharata. Senayorubhayor madhye vishidantamidam vachaha. श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासून गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरः प्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः तां स्थितिक्षस्व भारत यं हि न व्यथयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोऽमृतत्वाय कल्पते नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तस्त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ताः शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्मात् युध्यस्व भारत य एनं वेत्ति हन्तारं यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे वेदा विनाशिनं नित्यं य एनमजमव्ययम् कथं स पुरुषः पार्थ कं घातयति हन्तिकम् वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णानि अन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयं हेदोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतः स्थाणुरचलोऽयं सनातनः अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा मन्यसे मृतम् तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तधनान्येव तत्र का परिदेवना आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित् देहि नित्यमवध्योऽयं देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्षा न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याधियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतम् सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम् अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिर्मरणादतिरिच्यते भयाद् रणादु परतं मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्य वादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किम् हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि एषा ते विहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखा ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम् यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपरा जन्म कर्म फलप्रदाम् क्रियाविशेषबहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति भोगैश्वर्यप्रस्थां असक्तानां तथयापहृतचेतसाम् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समौ न विधीयते त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदा निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान् यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूमा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणा फलहेतवः बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद्योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिस्तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितधीतिं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधस्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्राणभिस्नेहः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम् नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्जं रसोऽप्यस्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिरशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम् इन्द्रियाणां हि चरतां यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञां वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान् यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे सांख्ययोगो नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। Jai Gurudev. Any birthdays? Okay. So now I will do Shanti part and then we will close. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Gurudev. We all can come on cameras now. Unmute, come on camera, and then we say Jai Gurudev. Thank you.
Jai Gurudev.
Durga Bindu. Thank you, Sunita. Jai Gurudev, Bani.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Bela. I know you are there.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Bela. हिंदी में अच्छा लगा?
अच्छा लगा।
कुछ प्रश्न नहीं पूछे?
जय गुरुदेव हेमा जी।
Jai Gurudev, Anita. Jai Gurudev, Anne. And Jai Gurudev to Happy Girl. Okay. So we will close now. We'll meet next week. Again, same time. Thank you all for joining. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Hema ji.
So I'll close the meeting now.